So UI Automator understands Java commands rather than JavaScript commands. So similarly, your commands get like translated into the respective Java commands using the HTTP mobile JSON wire protocol, and then this particular Appium interacts with your respective device in the native language which this device understands. Okay, so before moving to the demo, like I'll quickly cover the roadmap. So if you are already like aware of like roadmap, what's going on in the Appium space, what features we are expecting in future, I would like to cover it quickly. So architectural changes. So now like Appium is scaling like anything. When they started, they never realized it will be such a big tool and like people start liking it so much. So now they realize that there are some architectural issues to scale it further, because now they need to start supporting Windows. They need to support 3 platforms, all different flavors of apps. So they have some plans to do some architecture related change, and those changes could impact some other things that we'll come to know in future. Apple Watch support. So we are working on Apple Watch, and we recently like posted a discussion on discuss.appm also on GitHub. So I think in the 5 release, I think we are on 1.4 right now. In 1.5 we are expecting Apple Watch support. So this would be a big support for us. Better documentation, that's required for any open source. Okay, so right now, if you like see whenever new Appium version comes, you will not see the same version available for your GUI apps. So because the GUI apps are maintained by separately, not by the Appium team. So there's a dedicated team who maintains after the GUI apps. When I'm saying GUI app, the Appium Mac app and the Windows app, not the command line interface, but the graphical user interface. So what they decided, so it's not easy for them to maintain, because in Mac they developed the Objective-C to develop those apps. In Windows they have the Windows technology. So they decided to rebuild a kind of a cross-platform technology called Electron. It's a kind of a cross-platform technology to develop desktop-based application using web technologies. So it would be having a single code base, like in JMeter you can see JMeter tool has a common interface for both the things. So they would be using this. So down the line we will see like better GUI applications and the single application for both the platforms. Yeah, so this is a big change, very big change I would say. So initially they started with Cylindroid. I think from API 22 onwards they start supporting UI Automator, and now they realize some issues with the UI Automators. So there's a new tool altogether coming up in this space which they call it the Droid driver. You can go to GitHub and you will find this project. So they have plans to replace UI Automator with Droid driver. So this is a big change. Yes, this is also a very big change. When I got to know, it was a kind of a big deviation from Appium philosophy. As I said, Appium philosophy was we should not change the application. We should test the same app which we are going to submit into the App Store. And that's why Appium is a little bit different from other tools, because those tools require some external library to be injected. But the problem with UI automation approach is we cannot scale. So the problem with UI automation library is Apple doesn't allow to have 2 instances of UI automation library running on 1 Mac machine. So if I want to run my scripts on 2 simulators or 2 devices, I need 2 Mac machines, and which is a very costly affair. So this is one problem. So I think that's the only reason which triggered to this. So now there would be an alternative approach for iOS automation, that is a Calabash based approach. So if you want to go with UI automation, you can go with this. But there are many restrictions, and the Calabash approach would be like you need to inject an external library, but still it is scalable. So now you can choose like which is like more suitable for you. So this is a big change. Okay, so I think Appium requirements, like you can easily find it on the Appium website also. For Mac we need 10.9 plus with Xcode and iOS SDK. For Android SDK, Android Studio is not required with emulators. We would be needing Node.js on our respective machines with npm. Npm is the like node package manager. Java, like Java is required for Android. Appium client in your language, like anything whichever languages we discussed, and then in your language any test runner. If you are in Java, you can use TestNG, JUnit. If you are in Ruby, you can use RSpec. And you're in PHP, you can use PHP unit. In Python, we have PyUnit. Similarly, we have different tools so you can choose any of your frameworks here. Okay, so now let's move to some hands-on experience. Okay, so I'll quickly show like a typical mobile web automation, how you should proceed with mobile web automation. So we'll take a very small code which works on a normal web browser, and how we'll port it into a typical mobile browser. Okay. I'll quickly show you, like, if the people who are not like familiar with Appium. So this is the command line interface on Mac. So you can see it's a very like beautiful interface. You can start it. There are many functionalities which you can like cover in detail. And this is for the beginners. But if you are think you are like have good knowledge in Appium, you are proficient in Appium, you can move to the command line interface. That's a better interface for continuous integration and to have like better maintenance and scalability. So I'll see. So I'll not show like how to install Appium. I think that's a very basic steps. You can see it on Appium website as well. So to start, once it's installed, first you need to install node.js on your machine, then you need to install Appium over it, and then you just write Appium keyword on your terminal and still start Appium. Okay. So you can see it started on this 4723 port, and you can see the version is 1.4.1, I think, which is the latest one. So okay, so now we have like Appium started. So now I'll run some code in Java which will send my commands to Appium server. You can see the commands getting received here, and this particular Appium server will interact, will translate my commands, and will like operate these commands on a typical iOS device or a simulator, or similarly for Android as well. So let me see if I have my like emulator connected. So like on Android, we can possibly do like automation on an Android Chrome as well as Android native browser. So the difference is we cannot install Chrome on emulators. Chrome doesn't gives you a binary which can be executed or installed on an emulator. So if you don't have devices available, if you want to go with emulators or Android emulators, then this is the default browser, go with this. If you want to run it on actual device, then go with Chrome. So this is a kind of a basic practice we are following. So now this is my emulator already running. I'll go to my code. So we are using IntelliJ as an ID for Java. So I have multiple methods. So if I'll just open my first method, the second method, sorry. So this is a method. You can easily see the code maybe after the meetup in GitHub. So this is my basic Android native, and here we have not followed any framework. It's a basic simple code because our focus is just to tell the Appium, not about the like frameworks we can use. So it's a very simple like code. You can see we have certain desired capabilities. So you can see this is the thing which will like do the switches between the browser. So we have a one kind of a enum mobile browser type, and you can see we have different multiple values available. Browser pointing to the native browser, the Chrome points to the Android Chrome, the Chromium is for the Chromium like stock build which have nightly builds we have. The Safari is for the iOS Safari. So here we are doing for the native build. I'll select browser. Okay. So I'll try to run it in a debug mode so that one by one we can understand what command is going on. Otherwise it will like quickly run it and you will not get to know what's happening. So I'll try to explain each command one by one. So my emulator is running. Let me open. And my Appium is also running. Okay. So what I'll do, I'll quickly debug it. Run it in a debug mode. Sorry, I have not. So you can, sorry, I missed, I think I have to stop. It's too fast. Okay, so let me put a breakpoint properly, and my emulator, let me quickly close it. Okay, we are all set now. Okay, so I'll again trigger it. So these capabilities you can see they talks about like which platform. So my emulator is on Android 5.1.1, which is the latest one, and then launch timeout, command timeout. These are certain some timeouts, and we are doing it on emulator, Android emulator, and the browser type is the native browser. So this is the command which kind of initiates everything. So this is the first official and like Appium command which interacts with your server. So it says, okay, give me an Android driver with these capabilities, and it is requesting a kind of an instance of the browser with the Appium, and Appium will return the instance. So I'll quickly move next before like it starts. So let me open the emulator. Okay, so I'll open. So here you will see quickly. Here you see certain commands coming, and it has started the browser, and you can see it is started. So I'll resume the test now. I'll break the breakpoint. So you can see it is like doing a basic check. Appium Meet-up Noida. This is the like first link. It will click on the first event of a meetup. It will take a like It will simply do some assertions on the Appium Meetup text and it is done. So like it is that simple. So apart from the initial line, rest of the code, let's go through. You can see it's a typical WebDriver code. So like by just introducing couple of more commands and Appium into the picture, now your same Selenium scripts in running on a native browser on Android emulator. So you can see we are doing certain find elements, some timeouts, explicit timeouts. You can see some like we are playing with XPaths and simply we are doing some assertions, which is like very common to any unit testing framework. And so you can see it's done. Yeah. I need to see how will I'll show. I think it's not possible in ID. Okay. Fine. I think it's working. Okay. I think. So you can see. So this is a typical WebDriver code, and so the main magic is done by the first command, new Android driver. It returns you an instance, and automatically it returns your typical browser instance, and now the rest of the code is your normal Selenium code. So this is the way we kind of ran it on the native browser. So if you are dealing with simulators or emulators, so the native browser is the better choice because we cannot install Chrome on a native on an emulator because Chrome doesn't give a binary to be installed on an emulator. Yeah. Yeah. No, no. As I said, Appium is a kind of a cross-platform tool. So when I started Appium, so there are two choices. Either you pass these capabilities from your code, either when you start Appium, you started with certain context. So I started Appium with a blank context. When I started Appium, I said start Appium. I haven't said anything like I'll be doing a web automation, I'll be doing an Android native app or iOS native app. So that's the beauty of this tool. So I have started Appium. Now the person who is writing the code is up to him how he can leverage Appium. Appium. So I could have like if you say I'll say Appium and I could have passed these server arguments there. Okay, this is my platform, this is my timeout, this is my all these things can be passed at server side as well. But that would restrict the Appium server which is running. I cannot utilize that same instance of server for other types of automation. So it's better you start Appium with a blank context, and context should be set by a code rather than Appium. Right. So yeah, so another important aspect I think I missed. So like for Selenium we have different client libraries. For Appium we have different client libraries. So what Appium team has done is they kind of forked the Selenium client libraries for different like Java, and they added some external methods apart from basic Selenium methods. So this Android driver is a new class introduced into this client library. It's different from Chrome driver and Firefox driver. So it's like a class which kind of inherits from a Appium driver, which is an abstract class, and Appium driver kind of implements the WebDriver interface. You can use not WebDriver, remote WebDriver. You can use remote WebDriver as well. In that case, you need to pass another capability that which platform, not platform version, just platform, which platform you are automating. So Android driver says, okay, I am dealing with Android. If you will give remote WebDriver, you need to pass external capability mentioning your platform, like whether you are dealing with Android or iOS. Okay, so let's move to the next. So let me start Appium again. So this time we'll see on real Chrome, real device. Let me plug in my device. Yeah. Java client, just Java client. Java client is kind of forked from Selenium, so it contains everything. Yeah, that could be the reason. Okay, so I have plugged in my device. So you need a typical Android device, I think from Jelly Bean onwards. So initially, and also one more thing I want to tell you. So for like automating Android browsers, Appium is not doing anything. They are simply relying on Chrome drivers. The Chrome team, the Google Chrome team has developed everything which possible this interaction. So Appium just internally relies on Appium driver. So if anything is not possible in Chrome driver, Appium can also do that. Appium simply pass your controls to Chrome driver and Chrome driver deal with all these interactions. So I need a simple device which has Chrome already in it, and the device should be, I think, Jelly Bean onwards, 4.2 onwards, because Google introduced the Chromium based web views from Jelly Bean onwards. So before, the older devices are not supported for this. So let me start. Okay, so so I'm not going through some basic ADB commands. I think you should be familiar with basic ADB commands. First you plug in your device, you should have Android SDK installed on your device. You do ADB devices, it will show you your device is plugged in, and then I am simply just projecting my, just to show you, I'm projecting my device display here. So this is my device. So I have Chrome already installed here, I'll show you. Chrome is there. So now we'll try to invoke this Chrome and run the same test case which we did on emulator on native browser. Okay, so my Appium is already running, and you can see it's running, and I'll simply trigger this test case. You can see Appium commands are coming. It's doing something, so it's difficult to kind of understand if you are like not familiar with Appium, but yeah, these logs are highly useful if you encounter issues. It has started Chrome. It will go to google.com. It will search for Appium Meet-up Noida for this event. It will find this event. It will click on it, and it will validate whether the title of this meetup is correct or not. So this is that simple, like same type of code with just, so what I have changed in this code, you can see this. Let me. Initially we were using browser, now this Chrome, and the same code is running on like real device. The another change is like device name. Previously we were using in place of this string we were using Android emulator. Now this is my device ID. So it has executed, and it also captures screenshot. Let me see if I am able to capture it. Yeah, so there should be a Chrome SSPNG in the screenshot. Yeah, it's there, and you can see it has captured a beautiful screenshot just to validate whether like our assertions was correct or not. Okay, so this is like all about web automation on Android. So initially, like for both the kind of a test cases, it relies on Chrome driver. So you need a Chrome driver, the latest Chrome driver, and any device with like Jelly Bean onwards and Chrome on it. That's it. So let's move to the iOS side now. That is more complicated. So for iOS also same. My Appium is still running. That's the beauty. Now we'll move to iOS. So I'll not change the context. That's why I've started Appium with a default context. So now I'll go to so for iOS we need not anything, like we'll simply start the server and we'll execute the code. Okay, so let's move to iPhone simulator test. Okay, so here you can see the mobile browser type is Safari. So this is the difference, and some other things also. You can see the platform name is iOS rather than Android. Version is 8.2. The iOS version, the device name is iPhone 6, and the timeouts are almost same. So I'm just flipping the values of these capabilities. My remaining code is same, and you are seeing like the whole context is getting changed. Okay, so I'll simply trigger this test. It will automatically invoke the simulator. You can see it. We launched them. Okay, sorry. Let me. So you can see the first issue. So iOS is little flaky. Sometimes it opens, sometimes it try that. So we can like configure these retries. By default, it will try 3 times to invoke your simulator. Let me. You can see. So it started. Yeah. It's there. I'll show you. It's there. So you can see now it's iOS Safari. It's done. I think it's that fast. Lightning fast. So let me see if it's passed or failed. So you can see there's a screenshot available, and in the test results also it's okay. So I'll see the screenshot now. So this is, you can see iOS simulator screenshot, and the same test case executed on an iOS simulator with 8.2 operating system like iOS version. So this is the way. Okay, so now let's move to a real iOS device. So when a real iOS device comes into the picture, all your troubles will start. So because running Apple has designed its whole ecosystem in such a way, it never allows anybody to do different things which he doesn't allow to do. So if you want to deploy anything on a real iOS device, you need a developer account which costs $99 per year. You need provisioning profile certificates. You need a Mac machine, Android. You can do Android automation on any Linux, Mac, Windows. So this is the kind of a philosophy, or you can say the business strategy of Apple. So for Apple, let's move to the iPad. So I have an iPad mini device. Let me see if it's projected. It's projected. No, I think it's not projected. Let me pull it again. Sorry. Okay, done. I think you guys can see the iPad screen. So for like iOS, what Appium team has done right now, technically there is no way through any tool to invoke this Safari browser on a device. So technically it's not possible. Apple hasn't exposed anything to invoke this Safari application. So this was the initial blocker, how to like approach it. So how Appium team has solved it, they created a small wrapper app, very small app. They call it as a Safari launcher. And from one app, you can like invoke another application. As you see, like when you log in with Facebook, it like switch to Facebook app and then comes back to your native application. So this app will invoke the Safari browser. That is the hack around, but yeah, it solves a problem. So we'll deal with this app. We'll say, okay, it's a kind of a native context. We'll say, okay, install this app, launch it, and on this application, there's a small button, launch Safari, and then we'll make it click. And once it is click, I'll change my context to a web, and then I'll execute my script. So it is little tricky compared to normal other three cases we have seen. For the real device. In simulator, you can directly run it. So in real device, it's a hack around. Otherwise, it was not possible. Another problem is like to debug a browser, you need a debugging interface. So there's no debugging interface which Apple has given to debug on a Safari on a real device. So somebody has already like written something. So we call it as the iOS WebKit debug proxy. So you can find it on a Appium like website. It's on GitHub. This project is hosted. So you need to install it, and it allows. It's a kind of a standard debugging protocol to debug a real iOS Safari. So I'll simply start it. So it's a hexadecimal like characters. You won't be understanding it, but internally it will try to pass on your commands to a real Safari. So now these are the two requirements. My Appium is running. Let me start it again for safety. So my Appium is running. This is a like iOS WebKit debug proxy. It's running. Appium started. My screen is projected. Let me go to my ID now. Okay. So you can see here there are few things different. Like platform version, device name, the name which you have like to your device. The UDID is required that you can extract from iTunes, and then timeouts. So okay. So this is like okay, and also here I need to pass the zip file. So this is a kind of a native automation, but we are like kind of it's a workaround, it's a hack around. We are launching a native app, and then that native app will launch your browser, and then we'll switch the context. So we'll like see it one by one. Okay, so I'll put my breakpoint here and I'll start it. Debug it. Okay. So you can see I'm on this statement, which is the kind of a starting point from Appium. So I am requesting an iOS driver with these capabilities. So what it will do, it will simply install that Safari Launcher app on my device, and it will invoke it simply. So I'll see okay. I have my breakpoint here. I'll debug it, and I'll project my device. I'll see both the things. You'll see something happening on both the sides. So my like Safari Launcher app is launched, right? So there's a small button if you see in the center, launch Safari. So I just need to click on this. So till now I'm in a native context. I'm not doing a web automation. It's like a native automation. So I have launched the app. I'm saying okay, find element mobile by. So it's a way to like deal with native elements on any Android. So I'm saying this is my accessibility ID, which you can find from Appium Inspector, and this way I'm saying click on it. So once I'll execute this statement, let me execute it. So you can see it has launched the browser. So this was a hack. initially, like technically it's not possible to directly invoke the browser. So someone has created an app, we launch that app, and that app invokes the browser internally. So externally it's not possible to invoke it. So now my Safari browser is on. So now because I started Appium with a native context, I need to switch the context. So in Appium, there's a command like in WebDriver, we have a get context handles, get Windows handles we have in WebDriver. Here we have get context handles. It will return me the possible context available at that time. I'll simply think. So in the handles you can see right now, I think it's not possible. So there are two contexts right now, native app and web view. So because we started with a native app and now a web view browser is open, so it will showing me two contexts. I'll switch to the web view context and I'll simply switch it. And now I'll quickly run it. You can see it has launched the google.com, the same test case on a real iPad device on a Safari browser. It will click on the first link, it will do some validation, and it's done. So that's the beauty. Now next time if your next test case will come, it will not deal with it directly, it will invoke that application that will again invoke it. So it left the browser in a clean state. You can see there is no last tab open, so it will open the browser in the same state and you can again browse it. So this is a very robust approach, and let's see some screenshot is captured or not, like SS Safari SS PNG. So this is the iPad screenshot, you can see. It has been captured. So yeah, so this is, so it was slightly different. There some external libraries are required, but we can do on a real iPad or iPhone, any iOS device on real Safari. Okay, I think, yeah, sure. Yes, it supports Objective-C, and like Swift is also in pipeline for Appium. Yes, Xcode. Any library which has a basic HTTP client within that language, it supports that language. You just, all these interaction is through HTTP. So my Java is sending this command not through any Java interface, it's sending from a HTTP interface in a form of a JSON over the air, over the internet, and then this command is listened. So when the Appium server will listen it, Appium server will not get to know whether it's coming from Objective-C, C#, Python or Perl or Objective-C. That's the beauty. So no. So I think I already discussed. So on emulators, on simulators, it's possible. On a real device, there is no way to invoke it directly. Apple hasn't exposed anything so that I can directly invoke the Safari browser on a real device. On simulator, it's possible. On real device, it's not possible. So this is the workaround, a hack around. So we launch an app, that app launches a Safari, and then we kind of change our context and we trigger. No, changing the context, this Appium works in two contexts, like our native context, a hybrid, I can say web context. Web context means you are dealing with a HTML kind of application, like DOM kind of application rather than a native application. And native context means it will use the native technologies like the UI automation or UI automator. The web context means it will use the Selenium library to interact. Because a typical browser is a kind of a normal HTML code, right? So it uses Selenium internally. No, so if you tell Appium driver, okay, just change context to web view, it doesn't like affect your whatever capability you have selected. In this test, I have started with the capabilities like, okay, there would be a kind of a Safari launcher app. Let me open that file. Yeah, Safari launcher app and all those things. Once you say now it's a web view, it will like kind of forget everything. It will say, okay, now I'm dealing with a browser, and whatever locators you will give me, it will interpret in a form of a DOM rather than our native app. So once you do this command like this command is doing the magic. You can see, let me, yeah. I'm saying, yeah, handles, I'm saying get handle, and I'm switching to the web view, that's it. So you just need to run this command, then my IOSD, that the driver object is pointing to a browser, and now I'll say find elements or manage timeouts or anything, dot click, it will run it in the web view, not in the native context. through the native locator. I have clicked on that button. Yeah. Yeah, I'll click on it. It will open the browser, and then officially my test will start. My web test will start. So all these steps would come in your test setup. In your before test, you need to put all these things so that once you enter your test, your Safari should be opened, and now you can proceed with your normal Selenium scripts. No. So I think this project is hosted on like GitHub. You need to check it out. You need to sign it with your certificates provisioning profile. You need to deploy it in your device, or Appium can deploy it, but you need to generate that binary which is signed with a certificate and a provisioning profile. So it's not that simple. As well. So here the Appium carries the components of Selenium. It carries the components of like Android automation, UI automator for Android. It carries the components of UI automation like for iOS. So that's why it is able to change the context. Anytime you can say I'm doing a web application, I'm doing Android, now I'm doing a iOS. So this way, that's why like Appium consists of everything. So that's why a single tool can address so many problems. Okay. Okay, so I think so I'll quickly show you the native app automation as well, which we did for one of the client called Equinox. So I'll show you. So because of time constraints, I am not covering like native app automation in detail. So we'll be covering like Android native app automation in detail. Maybe in the next time we can cover iOS automation detail, because for iOS there's so many dependencies, so many certificates. So it will take like at least a couple of hours to understand everything. Okay. So I'll show you. Okay, so now I'm simply show you like how to. So as we know, like so everybody knows how to like inspect DOMs, right? I'll show you now how to inspect typical native application, any native application, how you inspect it, how you get the locators out of it. So now I'm running another test which will run a native application. So you can see I'm passing a binary called equinox.app. It's one of the binary file developed or built for a simulator, not built for a device, not for a simulator. Okay, so they are like in Android also, if you build, you need to specify if you are building for a device or for an emulator or simulator. So then only, so a build which is like built for emulator will not be going to install on a device. So that's the difference. So I'll simply run it. Let me see my Appium is working. I think it's working, and it's not required, and my projector, it's projected right. So I'll quickly start. Yeah. No. So there are two steps when any particular like in Android or iOS, like in Java or any language, when you compile it generates your bytecode. It converts into dot class files or dot binary. So if you build a project, so it will build it, it will generate the binary, but when you run it, it will install it on the device. Hello. Okay. So I am on this breakpoint now. So we'll see now what will happen. So here you can see in the terms of capabilities, I'm passing iOS, I'm passing a app file. So as we know, like if you build for a like simulator, it will call it as a app file. Once you deploy, like install it for a device, it becomes IPA file. So iOS 7.1 device UDID, we want UDID. I can quickly show you like how to get a UDID. Let me. If you go to in iTunes, you click here. This is my UDID. So this way you can extract UDID of any iOS device. So and that's it. Apart like rest of the things, there are many more capabilities. You need to understand them in detail, like what is no reset, what is full reset, auto accept alerts. Just any alert will come, it will auto accept it. So there's many things. Like if you delve more deeper, then you'll get to know. So I'll like simply move ahead in my code, and I'll see and I'll open something. So you can see that it is saying app is not installed. We'll try to install the app on the device. So like for deploying an app, you also need some external libraries also. I'll like talk about it also. So like for iOS, there are so many dependencies. You need so many library. Like for web views, we need like iOS WebKit proxy to install. We need iDevice installer. So there's so many things. So you can see it has like installed and it is launched on the device. So this is the kind of a home screen of Equinox application. So now my breakpoint is on this point, right here. So now it has written me the instance which is pointing to a native application on iOS. Let me open it. So now what I have to do, I just need to click on this get started now, how we should proceed with this. So now the GUI version will come in picture because the CLI version doesn't have any spy, object spy. I'll go to the Appium GUI version and simply click on this. Even if you are not using this version, it can easily hook into the CLI version because it's running on the same machine. I'll click here. It will open an inspector. It will show you the screen which it will capture from your device. You can see something going there. So this is my like screen which is open on my screen, and I'll click here and I'll see. So it is highlighted. So this is my UIA button. So UIA button is a typical class used by like given by Apple. So they call it as a UIA button, and the name is get started. So whatever would be the name, it maps to the accessibility ID in the like client bindings. When I say find element by like in Selenium, we say find element by XPath, by CSS, by ID, by name. So in iOS, there's the most important thing like ID in HTML, we have accessibility ID in iOS. So this would be my accessibility ID get started. So let's try something live here. So what I'll do, I'll just capture this, maybe evaluate expression, and let's write find element by iOS UI automation. Just a minute. Sorry, just a minute. By accessibility ID, right? So I'll pass that string which I have extracted from my inspector. So my string is get started. So this is my accessibility ID for this control. I'll simply pass on this and I'll say, okay, this is my get started button. That's it. So let's see, let's try to fetch this element. What happens? Let's see. I'll evaluate this and you will see Appium has done something very fast and it returned me some control. So which is you can see it's an iOS element. And now I'll try to do click on it. And let me open here. Just a minute. Okay, so I'll simply execute and let's see it gets clicked or not. It's clicked. So this is a simple way, like you need to proceed in steps. Similarly, now I have two choices. Either I need to swipe or I can directly click on that cross button and it will directly take me to the kind of a login screen. So now like it's dependent upon the navigation you have in your app. You need to do swipes, you need to do scroll, you need to like maybe click on buttons, links, you need to extract text. So this way you need to proceed. You are saying in the Appium inspector you are saying, yeah. So you can do always recording also. Even you can try in the inspector, you can try to do find rather than whatever I did here. Let's try to do there also. I can show you here. So let me refresh it. So you can just test the locators there. In the locators tab, you can pass which locator strategy you want. You can try tab. You can try all these gestures. So let's try for this button. So you can let me see. Okay, this is the member login. So this is the member login you can see. So in the Appium inspector itself, you can try to do same thing. So here you can see you go to locator, you select your accessibility ID, give the value and try to search it. You can see it will automatically highlight it. Yeah, it will record it. But usually if you are playing with the locators, this is the better way rather than going into ID in a debug mode and then trying it. So that means that locator worked for you and you want to see whether the tap operation will work or not. You can just try to select it and you can see simply tap. Tap. You can see it tapped. So we have moved to the next screen. So yeah. Yes. No. HTML ID, I would say it will map to it. The accessibility would map to the HTML IDs. Like in HTML, we say ID is the most robust locator because it is kind of assigned by developer. These days, like more robust are sometimes classes also in CSS world. Like sometimes we need to rely more on classes rather than IDs. But yeah, so you can say accessibility ID is the name given by the developer to that control. So whenever he was designing this button, he gave a user-friendly name to that to kind of refer that particular control. And resource ID is an internal ID. So that is not part of DOM. That is a resource. That is the ID which Selenium used to interact with it. So that resource ID would be here also, but we are talking about the ID which developer has given to that control. So an accessibility. Yes. Just a minute. Let me stop recording. Let me refresh it.
So
yeah.
One more thing. Do we have same locators available here for Android and iOS, or is it different?
No. That these are two different platforms, two different teams are developing it. Definitely there would be. Like when you see two different apps for the same application, like if you're navigating Facebook or Android, iOS, Windows, you will see as a user like it's the same experience, but like developers had put a lot of hard work to make the experience like kind of a constant across platforms. So in terms of technology, there could be a scenario in iOS, it's a scroll view there, they've implemented in a different way. So altogether technology would be different. So for you, it would be you can say in terms of locator, it's different, but in terms of navigation, it would be the same. So like if you are storing your maybe locators into a config file of using page object model, you are storing into as in the same class. So you just need to have two copies of your locators, but the script will be the same.
So you are talking about something like a same script?
Same script running for like iOS app as well as Android app, yes.
With different class libraries for various platforms.
Locators, only locators, that's it. Because if you have the business logic or the navigation flow is same for your app across platforms, then your script will same. If the functionality is also different, definitely you need to have different scripts.
Got it.
Okay, I think I am almost, let me open the PPT if I have missed anything. Otherwise, we'll take a quick break and then we'll move to the next session. So I think we are done with this demo, as demo. Yeah, so this is a one small quick note. So we are hiring and you can visit our careers page, and we are hiring in both Appium as well as Selenium space. That's it. So I think, so let's go for a break. So like let's take a quick refreshment break and maybe we'll meet in 10 minutes again. Okay guys, I think there are some refreshments available at the backside counter, so please feel free to have them. And if you have any like questions, any discussions you want to do with me or anybody else, feel free to interact with each other, and we'll meet again in 10 minutes.